John, you got something funky going on with your aquarium background. So we are recording, just to remind people of that. And I'm not sure who else is going to be with us. It sounded like Rachel was planning to join. And I got a note from Rebecca that she probably couldn't. Something got scheduled for work, but we've got at least a good bunch of us. So yeah, Vanessa and Marlene, I guess, would be the others who aren't here yet. Should we do a quick hello? What's your name? What's something good in your life lately? And then Micah's going to start.
Sure thing, yeah. Micah McCary here. And I'll throw in my pronouns too, he, him, his. Yep. And something good, I would say, I really am pleased to really just be on this side of the presidential election or inauguration. Yeah. How about you, Lacey?
Lacey, she, her, and I would say probably the highlight of my life right now is teaching the anti-racism class.
That's awesome.
Lovely. Laura, you want to
go? Sure. Laura Black, she, her, and this is really trivial, but we're making Vietnamese noodle soup for dinner, some pho, and I'm kind of excited about it.
That does not sound trivial at all. Yeah.
Well, compared to Micah, yeah, well, I don't know. I am also happy to be on the other side of the presidential
election. It's never a good idea to compare ourselves to Micah.
No.
How about you, Dawn?
Hello, Dawn McCarthy. Pronouns she, her, hers. I am also happy to be on this side of the presidential election, and I've been happy to see all the executive actions actually coming out. It's impacting my workload, but it's a good thing. It's impacting in a positive way.
Nice. How about you, Ramy?
Well, I've not been doing much lately. I just participated in an hour-long Zoom session with the Athens Age Friendly Initiative. I've got another committee meeting with that group tomorrow for another hour. And it's been kind of interesting. It's difficult to see exactly what's going to happen with that group, but there are a lot of people involved, at least. So we'll see what happens over time.
Nice. I'm John, he, his. Lots of good things, but I'm still quite thrilled about Amanda Gorman.
Yes.
Marlene, you want to go?
Can you remind me what we're saying? I'm sorry.
Just your name and pronouns if you want to, and something good from your life lately.
Evelyn Guzman, she, her, hers. Something good in my life. There are many wonderful things. There are many wonderful things. I've got a kid heading off to college in the fall, and things are going really well. Like that whole process has been really positive, right, Laura? You're like, yeah, like you kind of get scared as it's coming. It's like, and it's going well so far. So it's been truly a thrill, and mostly because first generation parent, and then scholarships she has to try to find for herself because she wants to go to Emerson, right, which is a little pricey. And so it's been wonderful to watch her write these essays, and for me to realize that she has this greater consciousness of the world, right, and she sees herself as a global citizen. And when she writes these essays and I'm like, hey, can I take a peek? She'll only show them to me after. I'm like, yes, like this is our next generation, right? It's going to be really marvelous. So lots of hope.
That's sweet. How about you, Rachel?
Hi, everybody. Rachel Siegel here. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And just took my dog on a long walk. So that was nice. Even though the weather's not great, it's nice to be able to get outside. Always appreciating that. I'm looking forward to our upcoming race-related dialogues and book clubs.
Great. Okay, is somebody willing to take notes? Lacey, I know you've often done that role, but if you'd rather pass it along, that'd be okay too.
I saw Micah's mouth moving. I think he might be volunteering.
Yeah, I would be happy to help with that.
That'd be great. And just as an aside, did anybody end up saving the chat from our last meeting? I don't know if you may remember, I was on my phone, so I didn't really get any notes or anything. And I think we were all having some technical difficulties. But anyway, I'll go back and see if I can look at the video from that and create some minutes. So we can't quite approve them because we don't have them. As far as an agenda, I think probably the main things we want to do, and I think you all saw the printed agenda and it's also just put into the chat, but I think probably most of our time would be talking a little bit about the things we're doing with the Athens City Schools, particularly the classes, and also talking about the book clubs that are getting ready to start. I put the anti-racism leadership gathering on there, but we actually discussed it at our last meeting. So I don't know that we need to talk about it, but we can see if we choose to. Yeah. So anything else people want to add to the agenda? Well, perhaps we should talk a little about what's happening with Athens City Schools, and perhaps Lacey or Laura could jump in and share a little about that.
Okay, I'll share a little. I think it's still going well. This is our second semester of teaching the Flex Credit class at Athens High School on race, anti-racism in you, I think it's called, right? Exploring racism, anti-racism in you, something like this. I don't remember the exact title. It's close to that. And this semester we have 12 students.
One more,
with a
13.
Question mark to John.
13.
Okay, 13. Yeah. 13 students. And it's kind of a younger crowd. Like they do span the grades, but most of them are ninth graders, which is kind of exciting, that they're having these conversations at ninth grade. And so they're reading Stamped, and we have talked about kind of cultural identity. And then we've talked a little bit about Black history, especially in the US. And next week, Lacey is going to lead conversations about microaggressions and implicit bias. And I think it's going well so far.
What would you like to add, Lacey?
Let's see. Laura covered most of it. I would say this group, we're guessing possibly because of their age, seems to be a little bit less talkative, engaged in some senses, though I'd argue in the small groups, they're willing to have conversations, I think. But, we do like a This Day in Anti-Racism kind of intro, 5 minutes, talk about current events thing. And we haven't had much from them in terms of offering up things that they've noticed in the world. So we're not quite sure if that's just because they're afraid to be the one to speak up or because they're younger or other reasons. This group is also, to the best of our knowledge, an entirely group of white students. So that's proving to be a little bit interesting too, I think, in not having the perspective of people of color from the student perspective right now. So because of that, one of the things we're trying to do is put together a panel of students from the first class that we did to kind of talk about their experiences being high school students at Athens from the lens of a person of color. We also have more male identified students this go around too. So last time we only had one who was kind of in and out of class basically as well. So I think that just even the slight change to any of these dynamics, like, beyond the different personalities of people, makes for an interesting class. So,
yeah.
And I did talk to some of our students from last semester who are excited about helping to put together a panel. Some of the students that we talked about before. Yeah. So good. I'm going to have another conversation with the one student tomorrow.
Sure.
To get details and stuff.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, but she's pretty excited to help out.
Good. Yeah, it's Brandon Thompson and Emmy Jean Francois are the other two facilitators. So it's the five of us who are facilitating. And it's nice having already done it in the fall. We don't have to reinvent all of it, but we're also trying to think freshly about it and do it a little bit differently this time, and including that they will be reading and discussing Stamped, which we did not do in the fall. So any reactions or questions from the crowd?
Wonderful. It really is. What a wonderful opportunity. I'm even thinking about those ninth graders, right? It's pretty terrific.
Yeah. Cool. And it is being paid for through the Athens City School System. Oh, and Ramey just found a copy of the last chat and sent it to me. So I'll create minutes out of that and send that along. But yes, it is being paid for by the Athens City School System. They've been very supportive and very helpful. A lot of the organizational conversation was with Tom Gibbs, and then it's Chad Springer, the principal, who's been the contact point for actually making it happen. And they've both been very responsive and very helpful. And I think maybe we reported this the last time, but at the end, one of the things we asked students to do is to do an action project. And at the end of the last class, there were quite a variety of them, and some were quite elaborate and some were much simpler. The one that sticks out to me in particular is 3 students who met with the principal and the social studies teachers to champion the idea of using the 1619 project as a big piece of the curriculum. And actually that's happening still this semester, that our one returning student is wanting to continue that effort as her action project for the spring semester. So good stuff. Thank you, Community Relations Commission. It wouldn't be happening without that support. So
sounds really great. I think my only question is, do we know already if it will continue into like fall semester, or is it kind of play it by ear?
I think we don't know yet. I think the assumption is we can. Okay. We have to decide if we want to, and then they have to agree if they will continue. But I think the assumption is that there's a long-term commitment. Or it's not just assumption. There is a long-term commitment to doing racial equity work, and I think they're very pleased with the class so far. So, but we haven't done anything official about next year yet. And last year we figured all that out kind of, late in the game. So it'll be nice if we can get that figured out earlier this year so that students can be thinking about that right from the start of their planning for their schedules. It's pretty much an add-on for all the students, although it is a full credit class, or, it's a half credit class, but that's what any class, semester-long class is at the high school, as I understand it. So sweet. Is there anything from the Anti-Racism Leadership Project that we feel a need to bring up at the moment? There was a little bit of discussion about, and I just added to that discussion today, about the idea, most people seemed very pleased with what we did. There were a few people who were disappointed that it wasn't, they were expecting it to be more of a training for people who were deeply involved in anti-racism leadership already. Mm-hmm. And, so there's a question there about whether that's something we might want to take on, as creating that kind of training, or nudging somebody else to do it, or not worrying about it too much. So
it seems to me that if there was going to be a training like that we could be involved, but that it would be better if it came out of like the Racial Equity Coalition or something that was a little more broad based. than our group. Like our group is part of the coalition, but I think if we were going to do something at a high level, it would be important to, come from that.
Yes, I agree.
Also,
I think in some ways we're less threatening to the broader audience, particularly for those who just want to become more aware of what anti-racism constitutes and how one might react in that way or change their behaviors in that way. But it's more a sense of coming to awareness as opposed to dealing with individuals who are fully immersed in anti-racist work and are engaged in training specifically. So I was not surprised to see those comments, but I also really wasn't that worried about them because I felt the overall group had a positive reaction to just listening to people and becoming more aware themselves of what the issues were.
Yeah.
I think that's how we styled it in some ways. If we do another one, I think we need to think about Brandy's comments about what is our audience and what is our goal and how do we align those two.
Go ahead, Melanie.
I was just going to say that there was a tremendous service provided, I think, in people having that chance to connect, right? Especially with some of the folks that you don't see regularly. And there was a real benefit to that. And honestly, like Micah and I live and breathe this kind of training and work every single day. So does Laura, so do many of you, right? So, but even for us, just that connection to new folks that I didn't know were out there as resources or people who were interested in learning and weren't quite sure how to go about it. Some of those conversations that happened in the small groups were really important for us to have in this community. And so maybe we think about those practitioners in that area as resources for everyone else. But at the same time, I like the idea of we were all equal community members coming to say we're here for each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought we were trying to do.
Right.
And I think that's the spirit I went into it with, right? Was like, I'm going to meet some folks who haven't ever gotten any training, but are just kind of like, yes, I want to do something, or I want to learn, or, whatever step they were at. And for me, it was wonderful just to connect.
Mm-hmm.
So that what's our purpose, what's our audience has to be important, right, as well. And we're serving the broader Athens community,
Yeah. Agreed. Anything else on that? Anybody wants to add?
I wasn't sure if anyone was able to help connect any of those who requested buddies. If not, it's not too late, but we did have some people who indicated an interest in I think at this point I can help follow up on that and do that via email, loop everyone in.
Yeah, and I'd be glad to work with you on that, Mike. I haven't gotten to that yet either, but I'm aware that's still hanging out there. There could be a ton of time put into following up on that event. I have put some time into following up on that event, but that would be great.
I'd be interested in sort of that next event that you were talking about in terms of like I don't know, sounds kind of like a 201 type event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the one in charge of it. I'd like to help with it if there are other people who want to do that.
Great. Well, the Racial Equity Coalition is meeting tomorrow, so we can at least mention it so it begins to get on people's radar and see if it gets any traction. Mm-hmm. That's good to know, that interest, Lacey. Okay, I have a couple of little announcement-y things before we talk about book clubs maybe. And one is that folks should know that there's been conversation with the city of Athens about their role, and in particularly about following up on the ordinance, I guess it was, or whatever it was that was passed by city council, the position that was passed by city council back in the summer, noting racism as a health crisis.
Mhm.
And there's been conversations with the mayor and some other folks, some of which I participated in. And the outcome of that, I believe, is that a group formed by the mayor is going to become part of the Racial Equity Coalition. The Racial Equity Coalition is sort of divided into pillars, and there's going to be another pillar added specifically to look at issues for the city, including whether policies need to be changed or other actions need to be taken. So that seems like a good thing.
Could you clarify? So would it be the city of Athens that would be becoming, or a work group out of the city of Athens that would be becoming a part of the Racial Equity Coalition, or would it be a group from the mayor's office?
It'll be a group within the Racial Equity Coalition, and the mayor has taken some leadership in helping pull together new people who will also be part of the coalition. So there'll be a group focused on that will include people who are already part of the coalition and then some new energy coming in as well.
Great.
And then the other thing is that there continue to be conversations about the Athens County Fair and the Confederate flag. And yeah, that's probably enough detail on that for the moment, but that issue is not being dropped by the people who are working on it. So, Shall we talk about book clubs a bit?
Sounds good. Just trying to be enthusiastic,
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
At the end of a day, Zoom, we're all tired, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Woo-hoo. Let's all dance. Let's all dance. So the idea is, and what's in place is that book clubs will begin on Sunday, February 21st. At the moment, there are 4 book clubs set up, one for, or in the process of being set up, one for Sundays from 10:30 to noon. And I think you all got this email, I assume, but one on Monday evenings from 7 to 8:30, one on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 8:30, and then also one on Tuesdays from 4 till 5:30. And partly because of the schedules of the facilitators, those were the days that were picked, and trying to give people a range of options. And I know that Lacey and perhaps Ramey had talked a little bit about some interest in perhaps facilitating. And I guess the way I heard was it was kind of if needed. At the moment, it's not. And that, that's not a reflection on you, but it's also possible if we get enough people, we might try to put together a 5th group. And if that happens, then I'll be banging on your door again. And there also, the assumption is that there will be book clubs in the summer focused more on the city school folk. So that's another option to facilitate those. And at the moment, there's something like 22 people who have signed up, which is great. I think in my original email, I said sign up by the 8th, but I quickly changed that to the 12th. So a week from tomorrow would be the final date for people to sign up. And it sounds like there's a lot of enthusiasm, and most people are giving us more than one option of the timing that might work for them. So it should all come together reasonably well with, 4 groups, which means somewhere between 32 and 40, maybe we'd stretch it to 44 or something, people in addition to the facilitators who are involved. And if we go beyond that, then we'd probably try to create a 5th group. And that's where we are. Any questions about that part? I have reached out to the AmeriCorps folks, all of the people who came to the anti-racism leadership gathering, all of the people who came to the climate and racism workshops that Tammy Tucker and I did, and a few other groups. But if there are groups you are thinking about, we should say them now and get word out to them. And I've also, as I've been sending things out to some people, I've said feel free to share. And partly because of Rachel's reminder, it's also on Facebook.
Mhm.
So, Micah, any comments, questions, additions?
I think I've just got 3 of the times down. I've got
Okay.
Monday 7 to 8:30, Tuesday 7 to 8:30, and Tuesday 4 to 5:30. Am I
The
missing
other
one?
time is Sunday from 10:30 in the morning until noon.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So any other issues or what about you, Ramey? Anything you want to add?
No, I'm just thinking through the timing of all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel? Dawn?
Yeah, just keep in mind if you need any additional assistance, I'm happy to help
Great.
with the club.
Great. Marlene? Okay. Lacey?
I was just wondering how long are the book clubs going for?
8 weeks.
Okay.
And some people seem to be surprised, somebody wrote, there's a lot of information in the invitation, and possibly some people are signing up who didn't even see the invitation. But one person wrote back basically with the assumption that we were reading a book each week, and we're reading one book. It doesn't take that long to read. We're going to, swim around in that book for the whole time. Anything you want to add, or Laura?
No. I think
Okay.
I
Sounds
was
good.
just going to add too that if we do the summer version, we might want to consider doing a teens version, and I bet some of our students might want a more in-depth version of the book since we're kind of doing it in pieces. That's not necessarily the focus of our class.
Yeah.
So,
Angela Hall had just written today and said she wondered about trying to do one for the Andrew Jackson Davison Club.
mhm.
But if we're doing that, we might want to certainly offer it to other students as well. Cool. So then
It seems like if we did that, it would also be nice to have some of the high schoolers, maybe more upper, like juniors or seniors who had participated in some of our stuff, act as co-leaders for these groups
I
with the
love that
students.
idea.
So it's less like a teacher making you read a book and more like an actual
Yeah.
book club, you
Yeah.
know?
yeah, for the students, that'll be an
Right.
important piece.
Couple of questions. I recall actually from one of Marlene's outstanding kids now growing up so quickly that there was a diversity focused student organization at the high school, and I'm curious if anyone knows about that and if they're if anyone knows what they're up to, if they're connected at all to the work that's going on in the class. Anyone have any awareness of this group?
Yeah, it's like the Multicultural Club, I think is what it's called.
I don't think anything's very active right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, school is weird this year. And so
Right.
the kids are just like mostly at home and they're very disconnected from each other. Sometimes they're at school, sometimes they're not. Even sports are weird. Like the kids are struggling this year, all of the kids in the district beyond the district, obviously. But hopefully next year it'll be a different situation, but I don't know.
Right
Yeah,
now.
it was clear, particularly by the end of the semester, how much the students we had were struggling. And it was, there were several students who initially said, yes, I want to do this class. And by the time they'd had 1 week of classes, they they couldn't figure it out. They were just feeling too overwhelmed. So, Lacey, do you want to say anything about what's happening with PRISM?
Not a whole lot, unfortunately, in terms of like attendance and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm offering it each week in case, but it's not been too fruitful right now. So, welcome to, if anybody has any creative ways to convince, teenagers to be on Zoom. I think having the option of being connected, and particularly, over the subject of being LGBT, is helpful, and the arts focus for some is a good thing, but it has been pretty small. So
maybe instead of being on Zoom, you could have a class on TikTok.
Yeah.
Or have a TikTok challenge or something. I would not be able to design that, but somebody could.
I will say too that I run an adult LGBT counseling group, and that has also been very low attendance. So I think it's just the times,
Yeah,
it's
same
hard,
thing.
yeah.
Sure is.
LGBT Center's weekly student support group. Especially, I don't know if it's just the semester starting out, or pandemic fatigue, or Zoom fatigue, or a combination of all the above.
Mm-hmm.
My second question was a little bit broader, but stemming from kind of the significance of what we were able to accomplish with the Athens, the racial anti-racism leadership gathering. I recognize that we have so many different groups doing things in their own way to combat racism, and I'm not yet aware of many of the recognition tools that are already in existence, other than, say, like UCM Social Justice Award. So I guess I'm wondering, are folks on this call aware of resources that can be used to uplift, recognize, and celebrate the accomplishments of any of these groups as we hear about them?
What a good question.
I feel like that's something that would be really cool for us to do. I don't know if we have a platform to do that, but certainly, because I don't know if that makes sense, but it does feel like that would be pretty neat for people to maybe, what if we did like call for like nominations or recognition and do something like that? I think that's a really good idea to reinforce kind of what's happening and the energy that takes.
Yeah. We could, and would it make sense to do that in collaboration with the city of Athens or with the Liquid Coalition?
Yeah, maybe that could piggyback off of what you had just said, which is like the city.
Yeah.
Or the mayor, like that seems like a really good role for like that, the mayor's commission or whatever, like to be or the city to be recognizing.
I don't even know for sure who does them, but different organizations do recognitions, like Kiwanis and Rotary, and somebody named Carrie Shaw, Woman of the Year. I don't even remember who it was.
That was the Athens Foundation Women's Fund.
Okay, yeah. Well, it might be interesting to encourage them to use a racial equity lens while they're making those choices.
So I guess I want to make sure I understand what we're talking about. Like, we're talking about similar to the Social Justice Awards, specifically doing awards for people or groups doing racial work.
I mentioned UCM and the Social Justice Award just because it's like the only one I'm aware of in the community that comes to mind. But I kind of like the idea of the anti-race. Oh my gosh, there's so many acronyms and names. The coalition, I'm just going to call it for short, especially with that new pillar John described attached to the mayor's office, because I think that when we are, encouraging all this work, it would be great for the city to kind of maintain a list of accomplishments or something. So even if it's not, I guess it's a reporting mechanism that could lead to recognition opportunities, but that's kind of as far as I am in my thinking.
Okay.
And maybe part of what we do is magnify what UCM is already doing. Not duplicate what UCM is already doing with those amazing social justice awards.
I might be the cynic here for a second. One, not to toot our own horns, but I feel like we are the people who would be getting those awards for the most part. So I'm wondering if we'd just be giving ourselves awards. So that seems a little bit awkward, because even if we talk about like the Equity Coalition, like many of us are part of that. So it feels like we'd be giving ourselves awards, which we deserve them, but is a little bit awkward.
Yeah, we would want to avoid that. We'll have a private.
I will give Lacey an award. How was that?
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't be eligible for the awards.
Yeah.
Well, in theory, but
I hear you though. Yeah, because it is such a small group of people working on all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I'm also thinking from the lens of thinking about events that people will voluntarily go to, because that's even my thing with the social justice awards of like, what is going to get people to attend that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe because their friend's getting a thing, or maybe because they recognize it is important work and they want to be there to see it. But
I guess I wasn't even thinking of like an event. I was thinking more of just like a way to go. Like, we see you.
Mm-hmm.
okay, like a social media post or something, maybe like that.
Yeah, or even just like something from more of an official capacity of like the mayor or the mayor's office or the city recognizing a group.
Yeah, it would be nice if there was some money behind it.
Yeah, like to fund the project.
To say,
like,
right, exactly.
Yeah, like that them to be like, yeah, we want to give you this small grant to continue the work you're doing or something,
I mean, the Athens County Foundation has set aside money for racial equity funding for supporting racial equity work. So it's like a new fund that they've created in response to a lot of the local work going on. So they could be partners in this way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it could be a way to build upon that fund. We could work with them to see how we could expand that. I like that idea.
I was thinking we could give away money from the fund to whoever wins the award, but I guess it could be a way to build the fund too.
Well, I figured we would have to also work on building it in order for them to have enough funds in there to maintain it.
Yeah.
And sustain it.
That's reasonable. Yeah.
Arlene, are you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there might be some thoughtful ways in which we could design an award that acknowledged new programs, right? Something different, and intentionally kind of looked at groups that weren't like us or the groups that are already doing it, but the new groups that are emerging that are trying to make sure that they address this area. So some way to encourage, right? To provide even just that recognition. And then maybe it is, just calling for a story to be written somewhere where they get showcased or whatever it might be, if not necessarily an event, if that's too much, right? But just some ways to encourage those who are thinking about it, who want some help with it. And maybe part of what the award gives is, aside from a little piece of paper, so that we have no funds going out. Some maybe a mentor or two from this group, right, that maybe would be able to help them to go to the next step beyond that initial program that they put forth, but something that creates a more meaningful, sustainable relationship there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think about new groups. I think about the Andrew Jackson Davidson Club, which is pretty amazing, right? And is very youth-centered, not entirely youth-led, but like pretty close. And then on campus, there's is it Bobcats for Change? Is that what they're calling themselves? It's the student athletes who organized a bunch of Black Lives Matter kind of events and sort of have done a whole lot of work that are those are pretty new and not connected to big institutions in the same way that some of the other things are.
Yeah, like something for new initiatives. Even when you describe those like two students at the end of your class who like went on to have conversations about curriculum changes, like that's really inspiring. Like I hope those students get some credit for that kind of work that they're doing in a way that's like meaningful, that's really, those are people like I would like to encourage in our future, to continue that work and maybe other students to know about it, because it's pretty inspiring to hear that.
Yeah. Is that what you were doing when you were 15 years old? Trying to change curriculum? Not me, anyway. Great. Well, what if we put this high on our agenda for our next meeting and let the ideas kind of percolate and see what we come up with?
I have one more query. And that is, we're doing all this work with the leadership book clubs with one book. Have we thought about what follow-up with that? Will there be a 2.0, right? And could we do something like Conditional Citizens that brings into perspective, would build on what was already provided through the first book club, but help us to talk more broadly about all of these groups, right? Which is one of the things that we try to do, I think, as a commission. Part of the reason that we participate in different programs and set up different programs and tying in international as well. So I just wanted to put that out there.
No, I think that's a great idea. And there's nothing specifically in place. I think when we did the book club last summer, we imagined or planned that we would have more follow-up with the teachers. But once the school year started and it stayed remote, the teachers are, treading water at best. So that didn't happen, but I think that would be good. Yeah, interesting. And, one thing to consider is, I think a particularly interesting thing about the way we're doing the book clubs is that they are facilitated. But that is what causes it to cost a little bit of money.
Hello?
So we can also think about whether we would want to encourage ongoing book clubs that maybe aren't facilitated in the same way.
Yeah,
I need to talk to you about that too, Marlene.
Well, so here, the thing with that book that's good is it's a good intro. I feel like there's a lot of discussion that can be facilitated that creates some cohesion about where people are developmentally in terms of their own understanding of race and culture and history. And so there's it's a good jumping off place, so it's nice to have a different group each time, because it's a great place to start and kind of come together. But that would be cool if in our book groups, maybe we had a suggestion that group, I wonder if that group could even, once there is cohesion without the facilitation, then they could continue on and we could make that suggestion of if you guys want to continue to get together in Zoom and start reading this other book without facilitation and self-facilitate.
Yeah.
That would be really cool if there was momentum.
Yeah, I think so too.
But to keep offering the, some sort of a facilitated thing for new folks wanting to sort of work into the community.
Sounds like another good item for our next agenda is to think about all these ideas and see what we want to encourage. If we meet in early March, we'll just be a couple of weeks into the book club, so there'll still be plenty of time to implement something like that. And a couple of times so the other item that I had on the agenda, or one of the other items that I had on the agenda, was to talk about the funding for the book clubs. And at this point, this is not Athens City Schools. So last time, Athens City Schools paid for the book club for city school employees. And we had a grant from the Athens Friends meeting that paid for book clubs that were more community-based. And we don't have either of those things for this round. What we do have is Brandon Thompson did one of his DJ nights as a fundraiser for book clubs and raised about $3,500. And that, so good. And he's fine with the money being used in whatever way, as long as it's being used for anti-racism work. And what he and I talked about is we ought to really leverage that to some extent and not just use up all the money on this round of book clubs. So I know two obvious places to go for some money to help with the book clubs would be the Athens Foundation and would be the city of Athens. As a commission, we should have some money available to us to help us do things like this. So what do people think about that? And are there other places we ought to reach out to get some financial assistance, which both helps make the program work, but also helps other people have some skin in the game or commitment or whatever it is, involvement?
I'm curious if participants themselves, even at the end of the group, would be able to be offered a way to make a donation for, the next group. Like how when you pay for someone's meal behind you or, that kind of thing. Like if you want it to continue, you can sponsor a participant for the next group if it was something meaningful to you. Like I feel like that's something that maybe a lot of people would be interested in doing if we had a way of saying this is how you go about doing it. Like right. For example, we had like a way for them to easily do that through, Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay, something like some fund that it just went to or something.
Yeah, and the Athens Area Mediation Service has been kind of the fiscal agent for all of this, so it probably would be fairly easy to run it through there if we wanted to.
There might be people really interested in sponsoring the next group.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And even at our gathering, right? Part of what was so easy was you could just Venmo them the money right there. It was like before you had to go away and think about it and enter, look for it or anything like that. It was right there. Mm-hmm. It was fabulous.
Yeah. Other thoughts about money?
I was looking up this grant. I don't know if it would be a stretch or not, but the Sisters Health Foundation has money. Mm-hmm. Their next grant cycle is in July, so that'd be for summer book clubs. But if I forget how you stated it earlier, but like racism is being considered a, like emergency type
public health emergency. Yeah.
If, in terms of a basic needs type grant requirement, if it would fall into the category of that, if we were doing book clubs and things like that.
Yeah.
So that might be another one worth pursuing. Mm-hmm. So I think there's our 500 to 500 for that particular grant. So.
Say that again.
There's our 500 to 5,000 for that particular grant.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know how complex their application process is? I applied for one of those grants years ago through the mediation service. Sorry, go ahead. It's
not awful. We did it for PRISM. So, mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's partly just one of time and capacity, but mm-hmm. Yeah, we could either we can do it or we can find someone, mm-hmm. Another thing to ask people who participate in the book club about who would like to help us write a grant,
Yeah.
Other thoughts about where we might go for money? Dawn, I see you unmuting.
Yeah, I'm doing like quick searches looking for answers. It's like I can't think of others right now that this would fit neatly into, but I would be willing to do a little more research and also help with the grant writing.
Great. And there may also be something with, Kiwanis, Rotary, and some of those kinds of community groups. Either simply to ask for money and or to ask some bigger ask for their participation.
I will say that given Rural Action's work with the AmeriCorps program, and just in the community, they may be willing to put some funds towards this book club as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Could be. Good deal. Well, that seems like plenty to chew on. And Mike, I appreciate you doing minutes. And if we get those sometime in the next little while, we can all commit to reviewing the minutes and adding new thoughts. And, it is one of the hard things about the way we're forced to operate is talking about really important things and then not meeting again for a month. And I'm really pleased with what we've been able to do, but that's not ideal. So if we have a chance to do some emailing in between to keep the ideas cooking, I think that would be a good thing. The last thing I think that I had on the agenda, well, two last things. One is finding our next meeting time. Maybe we should do that so we don't lose track of that or anybody has to. And I was wondering if we can kind of keep a time, like this is the first Thursday of the month at 4:00. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason not to simply do that for March, April, and May? There is. Lacey's saying there is a reason not to do that. Tell us.
I've taken this week off, but normally I would be doing Thursday supper.
Okay. What's a time that would work for you, Lacey?
Well, if it was going to be Thursday for me, like 12:30 to 2 would be 12:30, 2:30 is a good range of time. Mm-hmm. Thursdays are better for people. I don't know. There's lots of other times I have free. It's just.
Sure. No, that's a good one to throw out. Is that a deal breaker for anybody?
No.
So I can block that time, but there's always the chance that work meetings will have to take precedence. So
yeah,
just something to keep in mind. It's easier for me if they're after work hours, 4:00 or after. Mm-hmm.
I'll have a standing commitment Thursdays at 1 p.m. Just mention that.
Mm-hmm. Well, sounds like we're back to the doodle then, eh? Yeah. But let's next time we do the doodle, and I'll send one out next week. Let's do it with the idea that we're finding a time that we'll use monthly, at least for March, April, and May.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, because I think between Mike and Lacey, they're ready that 12:30 to 2:30 time doesn't work. So, and Dawn's input. So I'll send out some ideas in Doodle and see what we can pull off. The other thing we really ought to do, and I keep thinking, I'll check with people between meetings, and I just haven't figured out how to pedal that bike fast enough yet. So I've been operating as the chair. We used to have a co-chair. And ideally, we would have, co-chairs, and we would have a secretary, and we would have a treasurer. And I don't have a need to try to do that in the last 3 minutes, but I do have a need to say, let's do that. I don't think any of these are going to be onerous. And I think, we really have a marvelous group, and everybody's really pitching in, and that's great. But we ought to get a little more official slots filled, and it would be helpful to me to have somebody else taking that role. So any of those roles. So does anybody want to nominate somebody now, or should we just make sure that happens at the next meeting?
I don't think we should try to do nominations right now. It would feel a little bit too rushed, whatever. But I will say that
I think so too.
I served as a sort of co-chair with Aaron Thomas for a few years before we sort of transitioned to John. And it was really helpful to have a co-chair, because then you have, and we tried to, have some some measure of diversity between the two people who were the
And you
co-chairs.
also have experience to think about in the future for that role again.
Yeah, sure. But I already did it once, right?
Yeah, you were even.
This is why, remember when I said I don't think we should do any nominations right now? I was only just going to say that I think it's useful to have co-chairs. Like it's useful to have more than one person.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot. It's a lot to coordinate with the city and
I do
organize
think it would be
meetings and
useful.
lead all the stuff. So
Yeah, if we're going to deal with money, I think it's very important that we have two people involved in monetary decisions with regard to just keeping everybody safe.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and Laura, I think actually you and I were co-chairs together for a little while.
oh,
as
that's
well.
right. Yes.
And you had done a lot of time in that role. So
Yeah.
So great. I actually was joking about nominations right now.
But I do think it's important for us to think about and perhaps settle on for the next meeting.
Yeah. And the idea is not that one person has to take something on and do everything, but that simply that one person is got an eye on whether things are happening that need to happen. So
Yeah.
Cool. Well, should we have a quick round of any last thoughts?
I would like to just share a quick one. I appreciate you all, but want to extend some special recognition to Ramey McCarrow. I had the pleasure of sitting in on a Black Excellence panel included as part of Black History Month, and Aileen Taylor, a former McNair scholar and alum of Ohio University, was kind enough to talk about mentors who made a huge difference in her life, and I am just appreciative of your continued support for students.
Well, thank you. Thank you. She's a very special person.
Apparently you are too.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say as we close the meeting, Ramey?
No, I'm in touch with a number of students. By the way, I'm reading Kendi's second book on how to be anti-racist.
Yeah.
And I would recommend that book to any of you if you haven't already taken a look at it.
It's marvelous. Yeah. Rachel, anything you want to add?
No, but I'm glad to be here and glad to see you all.
Dawn? Arlene, anything you want to add? Stacy?
I'll quickly add that I was asked by some people from HabCap to do an implicit bias training, and I don't have all the details yet. But if anyone might be interested in that, once I know the details, I'd be happy to share them if people from this group would be interested in doing that. I don't know how many people or what exactly they're expecting, but
Yeah.
they're interested in having something. So.
Great. Do you want to do a plug for the art contest? Is that appropriate here?
Oh, yeah. If you are 5th grade and above, you should enter my MLK art contest. And yes, that does include all of you. So there's an adult category. So it's posted on UCM's Facebook. If you want it specifically, I can give you the form. Technically, the deadline was this Sunday, but it's going to be extended a week. The winners will be announced at the Andrew Jackson Davison Club Black History Month event that they're having on the 23rd, I believe it is. I think from like 3 to 3:45 or something.
Yeah.
So the winners will be announced there, and then the 3 winning people from each category will have their art displayed at Donkey, and there will be fabulous prizes. So please enter.
Great. Laura, anything you want to add?
I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be doing this together. So thanks to everyone. I'm going to copy the chat this time. So have lovely weeks.